All right, we are ready to inoculate our garden beds with our Almond Agaricus. These blocks are all nicely firmed up and colonized now. You can see the one with the S there, that's the one we shook in our to shake or not to shake video about doing sawdust bags. And you can see that one's caught up, colonized nicely, just like the rest of them. If you want to see how I made these Almond Agaricus blocks, watch our pasteurized fuel pellet tech video. But today what we're going to do is we're actually going to bury these blocks or parts of them, because I'm going to slice them in half, I believe, into our garden beds outside. I have one bed going that is full of lettuce and some dill and collard greens right now. And I have another bed that I just planted that has a bunch of tomatoes, peppers, snap peas, stuff like that. So I'm going to show you guys technique how I do this. I've done this several times before, and I think I've developed a pretty good technique. So I have our bags of spawn here, our blocks. I have some of these cardboard trays, which I save for like drinks, you know, like Gatorades or whatever. So always save these. These work great for doing mushroom stuff, and also if you're out picking wild mushrooms, these make great trays for that. And one of the problems with doing outdoor beds is the animals and insects eating your spawn before the bed can really get established. That's a big problem around here. We have lots of things that like to dig up our spawn, including, you know, raccoons, possums, squirrels, chipmunks, and I've even had worms, believe it or not, destroy my beds. Worms love to eat mycelium, and if you have a lot of worms in your ground, some really rich dirt, which you do probably if you're growing vegetables, hopefully, the worms can actually eat your spawn too and totally cause your bed to collapse. So one thing you can do to combat that is use the screen right here. Now this is a really small mesh screen, and this isn't galvanized steel. This is like the plasticky kind of material. I don't know if it's plastic or, you know, some kind of composite. I don't know, but it doesn't rust, but it's pretty durable. It's like tear proof. And what you can do is you can do a whole block, or today I'm going to actually cut the blocks in half, like this way right here. So we're going to have a top and a bottom. And then you just cut a piece of the screen off and wrap it around your block of spawn, and you can secure it using zip ties, or I like to use rubber bands, and that's going to keep the animals from being able to get in here and eat your spawn, and the worms as well. This mesh is small enough that the worms aren't going to get in there as well. So I'm going to cut the bags off these blocks, and we'll get rolling, and we'll wrap them in screen, and then I'm going to take you outside and we'll finish it up. All right, so we're going to start by cutting the bag. Just going to peel that right off of our block. I'm going to kind of be careful when you're doing this. My goal is to keep the block intact at this point. And at this point, any kind of, you know, cleanliness or sanitation is out the window. Because we're going to be moving these outside and burying them in the dirt, so you don't have to worry about, you know, disinfecting with any rubbing alcohol or anything. That's totally pointless at this stage of the game. So there is going to be a little sawdust here that's going to get caught in your gussets. Just save that. You can throw that in the garden as well when we go outside. Move that off. So here's our block, and what I'm going to do is, because you don't really need the spawn really deep in the ground, I want it to work in like the top few inches of soil basically. So I'm going to cut them this way, and once I get it cut, then I'm going to show you guys how to wrap one in screen. And I'm not going to bore you with showing you all 6 of them here, because this is going to take a little while. But let's take a good sharp knife and just cut right through it. And that's okay if you disturb it a little bit, not a big deal. This is all gonna all gonna regrow. And what I'm gonna do too, I'm gonna take my bags and any spawn that might fall out, and I'm gonna throw this just in a plastic bag, and that way we can see that a little bit came off there. Just gonna keep that in the plastic, and we'll take that outside and throw that in the bed as well. So start with one block. Make sure we're in focus here. Yeah, you guys can see that. All right, so I'm gonna take it's a piece of our screen here that I cut, and just gotta figure out how it's gonna fit best. And basically, you're just gonna wrap it up like a little package. Let's see, I cut it just long enough there. And you do want the screen really tight to the block as well. So, because what the mycelium's actually gonna just take off and grow right through these holes in the screen into the moist soil around it. So then I'm gonna take, once I have it wrapped around nicely there, I'm gonna take our rubber band and just go around it here. And what I'll probably do is you can see there's one there that's holding that securely. I'll probably put another one right here, and then I'll just fold the ends up. So kind of just like wrapping a present. Just gonna tuck the ends in like that, fold them up on both sides, and then I'll run a rubber band lengthwise here to hold this together. Here's our block all wrapped in screen. Kind of did up the ends and secured them as well. And this mycelium is going to have no problem jumping through the holes in this screen and jumping off into the moist rich soil around it, and it'll be protected somewhat from any critters that might want to eat it. I'm not going to bore you with doing all these. Like I said, I'm going to get them all wrapped up here, and I probably won't do all of them. I'm probably going to do half of them in screen. The other half I'm just going to bury. And so next we'll be working outside. I ended up wrapping up half of them. So I have 12 total, 6 wrapped in the screen. The other 6 I'm just going to bury. Here's our garden beds. I'm trying to talk loud. Hopefully you guys can hear me. It seems like every time I try and make a video, my neighbors decide to mow the lawn. But anyway, this is the first bed. This one's all lettuce and arugula. It's doing really well. And I have some dill here, some collard greens in the back. And I've already dug some holes here. You guys can see them. I've dug some holes in between the rows here. That's where all the blocks are going to go. Over here I have sugar snap peas, which are doing pretty well. I just put in cucumbers, tomatoes, got a bunch of peppers, and some more peppers in the back there. Those are beautiful. Those are poblanos and I think Italian frying peppers maybe. This is my typical raised bed. I always put everything too close and just go for it. But hey, same thing. I dug holes already in between the rows here. So I'm going to drop our blocks in, cover them up, and then I got some extra composted cow manure, 1 bag for each bed. I'm going to sprinkle that over the top wherever I put the blocks of Almond Agaricus. Again, we're doing the Almond Agaricus mushroom here, which typically eats like composted cow manure, composted vegetation. And so we're going to bury the blocks, and I'm going to cover them with some of the composted cow manure just in between the rows. And then I actually have some shredded leaves, some shredded hardwood leaves. And we're going to mulch in over the top in between rows with some shredded hardwood leaves. And hopefully that'll keep keep the soil nice and moist near the surface where our mushrooms are gonna eventually develop. And having all these plants in here is gonna give some nice shade too, so the mushrooms will pop and develop nicely, hopefully. Yeah, you just want to dig your holes deep enough so that you want to make sure they're going to be covered with maybe an inch or so of soil by the time you're done. And you do want to try and work kind of quickly, especially if it's windy or sunny out, because you don't want your spawn to dry out. So I'll do one more combo block here. That, nestle it in there. I'm just alternating screened and non-screened here. And in general, I've found that larger chunks of spawn usually work out better for me. I've completely broken up the blocks before and just kind of sprinkled it in. And a couple things with that, they don't always seem to establish as well. And also you run a much greater risk of your spawn drying out when it's broken up into small pieces. So I would recommend at least doing large chunks, you know, maybe baseball size or so, or just doing full blocks or half blocks like I'm doing here. And now I have a bunch of spawn left over here that was stuck in the bags or that broke off when I was cutting the blocks. Not a big deal at all. Just going to sprinkle that in. Wherever my blocks are going in. And that'll work great. Our blocks are all in here in place. We're ready to bury. And I just wanted to mention a couple more things before I forget. I mentioned before the plants, the garden plants are going to provide some shade for the developing mushrooms. So that's the idea between the companion planting. It's sort of a mutualistic relationship, and we're going to get more bigger mushrooms because they're going to grow nicely under the shade of these plants. It's going to help hold moisture. And the mycelium is actually going to run through the garden bed as well, and it will give the soil some more structure. It will probably bring in some more worms, and it'll also help the soil hold moisture. So it's sort of a mutualistic relationship. That's the idea behind the companion planting. We're going to bury. We're going to sprinkle some composted manure over these, and we'll come back. Blocks are all buried. Sprinkled some nice composted cow manure over the top. Now this soil was really rich to begin with, and as I was burying the blocks there was just worms everywhere in here. I already have a bunch of leaf compost and composted cow manure mixed in here. Same thing over here. And now we're just going to come in with our shredded hardwood leaves and do some mulching in between the rows. This, again, I'm doing an Almond Agaricus here. And so they typically soil dwelling mushroom, they love all this composted manure stuff. They're going to grow really well in here. So all this stuff I have mixed in is going to be great food for the plants and also for the mushrooms. So, and this method would work with any soil dwelling mushroom that typically does well in this composty stuff, wine caps, bluets, anything along those lines. We're all mulched in with our beautiful shredded hardwood leaves here, and these are going to help hold moisture at the soil interface, which is where the mushrooms are going to develop. And I know by experience that Agaricus mushrooms love this shredded leaf compost, or shredded hardwood leaves here, and this works as a great natural mulch. So if you can save your leaves from the fall, you can use them on the garden the next year. And our mycelium is also going to break these leaves down and start to digest them, turn them into a really rich soil, which is also going to help our plants. So we have our companion planting all done here. And I also want to let you guys know that no method is foolproof in terms of protecting your spawn. This method's worked really well for me in the past, and I'm confident it's going to work again with this experiment. But the critters can be pretty persistent sometimes. And you can see I have a fence just some plastic fencing around these raised beds as well to mainly keep the rabbits and the chipmunks out, and it does work pretty well. And I'm confident, that these beds are going to establish, and we're going to get some beautiful Almond Agaricus mushrooms, and we're going to continue to follow the grow into the summer, and we'll let you know when the mushrooms start coming. And one thing with Almond Agaricus too, they really don't like cold weather. If you're down south or on the coast somewhere, you can probably establish a perennial bed with them. If it gets down below freezing, it's going to kill them off in the wintertime. I'm here in western New York, so you're basically going to have to respawn your beds every year. And that's what I do when I get the vegetables going in May. We're in third week of May here now. That's typically when I'm putting my spawn in, and then we're going to start getting mushrooms later in the summer when it's nice and warm. Last but not least, just like when you plant new plants, whenever you put in a mushroom bed, you want to water it in really well. And so I got the hose running on these now, and I got my buddy here guarding against chipmunks. And so watering in well, and after that, usually just normal garden style watering, whatever you would do for your plants, is going to be enough to sustain the mushrooms.